I'm surrounded by some of the brightest political minds in the country who'll be discussing and debating the predictions and the results. We're also joined by the giants of social media, by Twitter and by Facebook, who'll be giving us their unique insights into what you're talking about through the night. We'll also look at how you voted and what that means for the next few days and the next few years. In this room, when news of that opinion, the exit poll broke, Team Facebook is analysing your reaction to it right now. I've got The Guardian's Owen Jones. He's doing a Twitter Q&A, #OpinionRoom. Let me introduce you to my first guest, Daniel Finkelstein, the Tory peer and Times columnist. Philip Collins, his Times colleague, who was, of course, Tony Blair's speechwriter. And Miranda Green, who was Paddy Ashdown's press secretary. Well, when I turned to look at your reaction...
My mouth fell over.
Your mouth fell, and it's only just...
And the Conservatives is so large that it makes coming from second place to have any kind of role in government very, very difficult.
Even if the SNP figures are right with those predictions in the exit poll, 58 seats, Labour wasn't expecting anything like this in terms of the damage.
No, on the contrary, all today has been a story of Labour optimism. Anyone who's talked to people in politics today has been thinking it's moving towards Labour, not away from Labour.
Shy Tories?
I think there's a very good reason to be not shy enough, in my view, most of them. But clearly, if this is at all right, this exit poll, then the opinion polls that we've all been following for weeks have been horribly wrong.
What about reluctant Tories? Tories who never voted Tory before, but this time, perhaps the polling showed, didn't it, that people were keen to see this coalition continue. Is that part of this
not
picture?
so keen if they've only voted for 10 Liberal Democrats. I mean, funnily enough, the Tories and the Liberal Democrats on the exit poll come to exactly 326, although it's hard to see membership of a coalition with 10 members of Parliament if you're absolutely wiped out like that.
Miranda, if the predictions are correct, I mean, Nick Clegg was saying we will be surprised positively by the results, but this exit poll, what is he doing right now? How's he going to react to that figure of 10?
It's a terrible figure. I mean,
the other key question tonight, of course, is the Scottish question. There was talk of them getting a clean sweep, the SNP in Scotland. The numbers are saying 58, which is as near as you can possibly get. David Torrance is with me. He is the biographer of both Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond. Look, Nicola Sturgeon has had a remarkable campaign, but if those figures are correct, the SNP has overturned some massive majorities in Scotland. North of the border, Labour have been really punished. Why? Why do you think that punishment has come? Do you think it's to do with the referendum, or is it more long-term than that? The two main parties now, Daniel Finkelstein is still here, as is Philip Collins. I'm joined by Matthew Parris, the former Tory MP and Times writer, and by The Guardian writer, Owen Jones. Matthew Parris, at 10 to 10, you were not confident. Now you've seen those numbers. What's your reaction? You might go a little bit green if it was bad numbers for Labour. Bit queasy looking.
I would see. I thought you meant I was going to affect the green.
I'm not sure, but in terms of the numbers, when we've been mulling over these numbers and the possible combinations, it was never going to be that bad if the exit poll...
Not here at the moment on those numbers, but we're not very far away from being the territory where there isn't a government to be had out of these numbers.
Daniel, you've advised William Hague, you've advised John Major. What would you be advising David Cameron right now? Because, as Philip says, it's not that straightforward.
The first thing is to wait.
So you've talked a lot about Scotland, but what about the Kinnock factor? What about Ed Miliband himself? In the end, did it come down to people agonising in the polling booth, perhaps wanting to vote Labour, but not quite convinced that he was prime ministerial material?
Well, there's always a twofold problem.
Now we'll come on to the presser's role in this campaign. We've also got Adam Dant here, the election sketch writer, who's only got about probably 10 hours left of your whole campaign shift. But
trying to make an exit poll look visually interesting.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And just a reminder that if you want to join in any of the debate that you're hearing here tonight, we're on #OpinionRoom. Tom. Naval Head of Politics, Adam Sharp. Fascinating night thus far. What's it doing online?
Yes, it is. Well,
Miranda Green, you saw her earlier, of course, and Jenny Russell and Isabel Hardman from The Spectator. Jenny Russell, you are a friend of Ed Miliband's. What do you think he's thinking right now, looking at those numbers?
will she possibly backbenches to approve a deal this time? Could Cameron even do a deal with the Lib Dems again?
Isabel?
I think David Cameron could do a deal with the Lib Dems again. I think seeing that
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'm joined now by Facebook's politics specialist, Elizabeth Linder, and we're going to actually focus on that last result that came through in Sunderland West and look behind the headline of the Labour hold and see a bit more about the picture going on in that particular area of the country.
Users are still up and still watching the returns.
All right, Elizabeth, for now, thank you. Well, let's stick with the talk of UKIP in the north right now. I'm joined by the author of the seminal text on the rise of UKIP, the politics professor Matthew Goodwin, and also by the politics professor from King's College London, Vernon Bogdanor. Thank you both for talking to me. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I've got the guests assembled, those in the know, the journalists, to talk about the front pages. I've got Matthew Parris here from The Times, Owen Jones from The Guardian. Paris Lees has joined as campaigner and journalist, and Nick Ferrari, the LBC presenter. Let's start with the Mirror then. If we can take a look at that.
Oh, I think she won those debates.
Before I let you go,
Yes.
what do you think in terms of the future of the union? Because obviously that's a key question if the polls are right tonight.
Oh.
Let's end it there. Thank you very much, one and all, because Tom Bradbury is about to talk to Michael Gove. Tom, and potentially breaking news in the opinion room. One of my guests earlier, Isabel Hardman from The Spectator. A source of hers has told her that Nigel Farage has lost Thanet. Obviously, that's not confirmation of that result, but that is what Isabel Hardman is hearing. Let's pick up on Douglas Carswell's point, actually, his colleague speaking earlier about electoral reform. I'm joined by Katie Ghosh from the Electoral Reform Society. And if you don't recognise my other guests, you should probably be going to bed right now. Brian May, of course, from Six is broken. You're calling for reform. Where does a result like tonight, if the exit poll is correct, leave that kind of campaign? That this is the election where people will look at the share of the votes and actually say enough is enough, because there isn't the appetite, obviously, for the two main parties to progress with this.
I certainly hope so, and I think we need a kind of parliament which is hung.
Winning government, so I think electoral reform is firmly back on the agenda.
And what warnings for the smaller parties, given what potentially looks like has been an absolutely astonishingly bad night for the Liberal Democrats, the damage of, as you said earlier, about being in a partnership? And pie charts in the opinion room. What more do you want? He's on Facebook straight after this, taking your questions. So if you want to join Brian May and ask him questions about badgers, common decency, or indeed Queen, he's on Facebook straight after this. Tom, thank you. Well, I'm back with Adam Sharp from Twitter. Look, with the exit polls, if they're correct, they're certainly getting a lot of reaction on Twitter. In terms of issues, what are people talking about? Well, let's get some more reaction to whether this result, if the exit poll is to be believed, was driven by one single issue, which I won't do the cliche, but was it down to the economy? I'm joined by Ronan Dunn, the CEO of O2, and by Lord Jones, the businessman, very well-known businessman and former trade minister, and Musa Okwonga, who used to be a city boy and he's now turned poet. Thank you, gentlemen, for speaking to me. Ronan.
Which is important, as you just said. But actually, I think the average woman in the street, the average guy in the street, in work, in a private sector environment, said, I wish this leader of the Labour Party had talked about business.
Opportunity.
Spot on.
And then everybody can participate. And that also includes people who are not necessarily born here, because we have to get the balance of making sure that we contribute to the economy in the way that everybody will benefit. If there's nothing coming out, there's no way of solving the deficit problem.
I'm going to have to bring that to an end just because we've run out of time. It's nice to end on a lot of nodding heads rather than the row, but thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Tom. Tom, I do indeed. I'm back with Elizabeth Linder from Facebook. And in terms of Facebook and in terms of the campaign, it really has been all about Scotland, has it? Talk me through this map so that the viewers can clearly see what you've seen. Well, I will pick up on that point with my next guest. Then I've got Jag Singh, a digital expert. He worked on both Hillary Clinton and Boris Johnson's campaigns. I'm rejoined by David Torrance, an expert on the SNP, and by Sunda Katwala from the think tank British Futures. Thank you all. Yeah, what Elizabeth was saying, the SNP just nailed it online, didn't they? What we've been pondering is the accuracy of the polls, the day-to-day polls versus the exit poll. One of them seems to be very wrong tonight. I'm joined by Andrew Hawkins from Comres. It's about polling and the point of polling. I'm joined once again by Jenny Russell and Isabel Hardman. Thank you, Tom. First scalp of the night, and everyone in the opinion room was crowded round the screens for that Douglas Alexander moment. Tom, thank you very much. So it looks like Nigel Farage isn't going to get his seat in the Commons. Matthew Goodman, you were in Thanet just on Tuesday in his constituency. Did you get the sense there that he wasn't going to overturn that 7,000 plus majority, that he wasn't going to make it? Matthew Parris, if Farage doesn't make it, and as we've said, he's already said that he will resign, what does that mean for the future of UKIP? And what does it mean for David Cameron's future if he goes back into number 10? Does this mean he can ignore the threat of UKIP and go back to a more modernising route?
Well,
Thank you, Tom. So another really, really big Labour scalp there. Let's get some explanation, perhaps. We'll try from Elizabeth Linder from Facebook. Thank you. So let's get some more thoughts, really, on what seems to be a very bad night for Labour, what has gone wrong. I'm joined once again by Owen Jones, Isabel Hardman and Jenny Russell, but also I've been joined by Martin Lewis. You know him, of course, as the financial expert, journalist and campaigner. Thank you for joining us this evening. If I start with you, Owen, as you called it, catastrophic result there for the Lib Dems in Brent Central. Let's focus for a few minutes on Nick Clegg and his future. I'm joined once again by Graham Sharp from William Hill. What are his chances of holding on to Sheffield Hallam?
Well, we think now those three.
Graham, thank you. Well, let's get some analysis now from Vince Cable, mentioned there, his former advisor, Giles Wilkes. I'm also joined once again by Jenny Russell and by the Lib Dem peer, Lord Newby. Giles, in terms of Nick Clegg, look, we just heard there, might keep Sheffield losing the leadership. Is that a real possibility tonight, do you think?
it's a bit too soon to speculate. I know Nelson, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I have indeed. A late arrival into the opinion room, Fraser Nelson, the editor of The Spectator. That was a real surprise, I think, in the room, and the emotion running so high in Twickenham there. Was that a genuine surprise to you?
It was. I actually chaired the selection of Tanya Mathias as the Tory candidate in Twickenham, and at the time it was seen as being a completely unwinnable.
Fraser Nelson is back with Matthew Parris. Odds of a Tory majority now are shortening. Reaction, gentlemen?
It would have been crazy to think about a Tory majority this time yesterday.
Yeah.
But when the exit poll was saying we're only, 7 seats short of it...
For David Cameron, in terms of will he have the confidence to take the party in the direction he perhaps wanted to in the first place and has been moved off course because of the rise of UKIP?
Oh, this would be massive.
Wizard of Oz, the critics call him. Linton Crosby. He was everything that was wrong with the Tory campaign in terms of negative campaigning. The Michael Fallon moment. What's he thinking right now?
He's thinking he's probably the biggest winner of this campaign.
What do we think happens next? And if he does go, who's next in line?
I suspect Ed Miliband could be gone in the next few hours, actually. I mean, he...
Thank you, Tom. Well, we saw pictures there of Ed Miliband, but it was actually Nick Clegg keeping his seat in Sheffield that Twitter went mad for it, didn't they, Adam Sharp? Went into a cocktail bar in the early hours, and so far you've failed me. Now, there's a lot of talk that this was going to be the Twitter election, the social media election. Let's check in with Facebook as well. Elizabeth Linder, talk me through the figures here of what we've been seeing through the evening.
Yes, absolutely. This has been huge on Facebook.